And are there any changes to the agenda?
No changes, Madam Mayor. Or Madam Mayor, excuse me, Madam Chair.
She got elevated. Fine.
Without an election even.
Hey, I would like to add a special welcome to our new Commissioner, Scott Tracy.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
You're so welcome. If you would like to say a few words about yourself, we'd be happy.
Okay.
to hear you.
I'm happy to be here on the commission. I wanted to thank the City Council for that appointment. And my background on the field goes back to 1991. I used to be an air traffic controller here at the field. I had a career change that took me out of the county and returned after getting married to live here and now raising my kids.
Wonderful. Welcome.
Welcome.
We shall move on then to our public comment.
More introductions?
More introductions. Actually, I was going to wait till we got to that item on the list.
Okay.
If that's okay.
Sorry.
All right.
Who's running this meeting?
Madam Mayor, right?
Yeah.
All right, this is
I'm
the time
bossing her
for
around.
public comment, when any member of the public may address the Airport Commission on any subject that's within our jurisdiction and is not scheduled before us today. And I have one speaker slip from Don Thompson.
Good evening, Commissioners. Sorry about the confusion about the item being on the agenda later on. I just wanted to introduce myself and let you know that I was here because I was interested in the agenda item, capital improvements. My company is a supplier to contractors, and we appreciate the business that the capital improvement jobs create for us, and look forward to hearing more about it later on during the meeting. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Any other speaker slips?
No,
I
Madam
think
Chair.
that was it. Right. And the notices are that on Friday, January 16th at 3 p.m., the Secretary posted this agenda on the bulletin board, which brings us to the consent calendar. Are there any changes? Anyone have any changes to the consent calendar? Do I hear a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consent calendar carries. The next thing we have, our commission matters, are the election of chair, vice chair, and subcommittee appointments. I'd like to recommend that since we are missing 2 members, and since our newest member is new and probably has only just met and learned about what's going on, we might want to postpone this. Any discussion?
I would concur.
I would say tabling until the next meeting.
Okay.
Till February. Okay, great.
All right. I don't know if we need a motion for that or not.
Do we,
Um,
Madam Mayor?
Sure, why don't we have a motion? Anybody
So
like-
moved. Table
Second.
till February.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it carries. And that brings us to our new item of liaison reports. We are pleased to have our Santa Barbara City Council liaison is Grant House, who is here. And we also have our sitting in for our Goleta council member, Ed Easton, sitting in as the mayor of Goleta, Roger Aceves. Thank you. And we can start with Grant to see if you have any items that you would like to discuss with us.
Well, this is a nice addition to the agenda. Nothing really that you haven't already been dealing with. I think in the city. First of all, I want to welcome Mr. Tracy to the commission, and I think you'll you find very quickly that you're among some really wonderful folks, and I think you know that already. Just really good people to be working with. The big issue that's sort of on everybody's mind, of course, these days is the budget. Also, of course, for the airport, as you know, the issue of being able to sell bonds and get our airport terminal going. I don't have anything really to add at this point. We are really going to be looking hard, though, at everything based on recommendations from staff with regards to the budget coming up over the next few months. And we had a meeting at City Council recently to begin that discussion. I will say, given the chance to say this in public, public, and I know this is rebroadcast, is for people that have seen a brainstormed list that staff came up with of possible things that we may be looking at for revenue enhancements or possible cuts. That's all it is. It was a brainstormed list. So if you have constituents that are coming to you and all concerned about this or that, we're really at the very beginning of the process, and we're looking for suggestions, and we want to be open and as creative as we possibly can with how we address our situation that we're facing from a budgetary standpoint. But that's it, and we're starting a new year with a great commission. Anyway, thank you very much. Oh, and I'm very glad to see that the mayor of Goleta is here today. We do have now a new liaison role for the city of Goleta, and I just think that's the best thing in the world, and I know you all concurred, and that's why we have it. So I'll introduce to you Roger Aceves, the mayor of Goleta.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board and staff, it's very nice to be here. I'm so happy that the city now has a position as a liaison to be able to dialogue with the board on issues that affect us both. I actually, it was an idea that I entertained about 2 years ago, just after I came on council. I met with Ken Ramsdale. I said, what if? Can we? And, government moves slowly, but it does move. And it happened. My council selected Ed Easton, who's a new council member, as a liaison this year. He is a great council member. He's actually a resident of Old Town, so he can give that perspective to everything that happens at the airport. And should he not be able to make a meeting, I'll volunteer to be here again and represent him in the city. Thank you very much, and look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you. Pleasure to have you.
I'd just like to add that we're very pleased to have both liaisons and the freedom and the exchange of information back and forth.
Madam Chair, I might also mention that next week, I believe, I'm going to give a briefing to Councilmember Easton, kind of bring him up to speed with what we're working on, so he doesn't have to start cold with our issues. So.
Okay, very good. Which brings us to administrative reports.
Okay, our first one, every month we have a property management report, but this month's things are starting to change a little because of the economy, and we felt it warranted a little bit more explanation than the normal kind of pro forma reports that you get. And so our property manager, Rebecca Fribley, will make a short presentation.
Thank you and good evening. We're going to just go briefly over information that is new to some of you and some of you will be very familiar with. But we currently have 2,383,265 square feet of commercial industrial land and 173,194 square feet of leasable building space north of Hollister Avenue. South of Hollister, we have non-commercial aviation facilities that occupy 1,584,401 square feet of land and 170,942 square feet of buildings, including hangars. The airport historically has an average vacancy rate of about 3% for all properties. This shows you this slide will show you the land figures, how much is leasable, how much is leased. And currently, that's 2.4% of all buildings and 7% for land is what is vacant at this particular moment. We maintain, generally speaking, less than 3%, as I mentioned. And our December 2008 figures show that we had an total occupancy rate of 95.3% for commercial industrial buildings and 98.2% for land, and 100% of the non-commercial aviation space leased. However, since the economy has gone south on us a little bit, we have received word that one of our tenants who operates an auxiliary yard, has moved part of their premises up to Santa Maria and subsequently reduced their leasehold. That's a loss to the airport of $381 per month. Stoneyard Building Materials, who also has a yard downtown in Santa Barbara, consolidated its facilities and gave up its yard here, which is a loss to us of $4,279 per month. Advanced Broadband, who was a Cox Cable subcontractor leasing about two-thirds of Building 315, has finished their project and vacated. 1,912 square feet of that building is currently in negotiation to be released, but the remaining space is going to be a net loss to us of $6,124 per month. While we have not received notice from DHL yet that they're going to be leaving, their staff has all been given notice that they will no longer be employed. If DHL, in fact, vacates its space, that will be another loss of $5,227 per month. Viewed as a worst-case scenario, the total of these losses to the airport would be a drop in monthly revenue of $21,145 by March 1st. However, having said that, it's not all gloom and doom. Even with these vacancies, our overall vacancy rate will only go up to 3% for buildings and 1.4% for land. And that compares pretty favorably to vacancy rates in the overall Goleta area. The Radius Group reported for the third quarter of 2008 that office vacancies in Goleta, partially due to the new construction of the airport plaza, were at 9%, and industrial vacancies were at 4.8%. And currently, we have no industrial vacancies, and the only office vacancies we have are that 3,000 square feet that just become available. What we are doing in order to offset some of this is to explore all possible avenues to maintain low vacancy rates and step up our on-time collection of rents. We have had tenants report to us in a variety of businesses that they're finding that their customers are paying later and later, and subsequently some of them are paying us a little bit later. So we're working very hard to work with those tenants to make sure that our on-time collection rate stays good. At this moment in time, we have one tenant that has gone net 30, and the rest are all current. We will also be reviewing the land that we still have available to look for other opportunities to either produce more yards and also other avenues of advertising to make sure that our properties are producing the maximum revenue. Do you have any questions?
Just one question. Is there an assessment of a late fee, that sort of thing here, if rents are not on time?
Yes, there's a 1.5% late fee for each month that the tenant is late.
Thank you.
Do we have any type of program of advising the current tenants when other airport property is available in case they may want it or know of somebody who does?
I keep in quite close touch with our tenants, and I know, generally speaking, which ones are looking to expand, and they keep in touch with me. We do occasionally, depending on the needs of the tenants, shift some folks around. If one person wants to downsize, another person wants to increase their space. As much as possible, we try to be flexible about the way that we use our buildings so that we can maintain an optimum ratio of vacancy to leased space. And on the whole, I think if you've looked at what we've done over the last 3 years or so, we've been quite successful at being below the norms for both Goleta and Santa Barbara.
Do we have anything like an e-newsletter that might go out to just let them know?
To the tenants in general?
Yeah.
We have our vacancies all published on our website, and they're aware of that, and that's linked to the city's website, and that's one of our best ways of getting information out to the general public. advertising in the newspapers, interestingly enough, has not been terribly successful. We actually get most of our recommendations either through our maintenance people, our patrol people, or contractors who have actually done business with us. And the word of mouth has always been the most successful way of getting new tenants.
Okay, good. Any other questions?
The report had mentioned unimproved lots on Lopez Road, and I was curious if there was any study done to how to make them usable, diking or diversion of. The problem was flooding, I believe.
Yes, we do have a drainage problem in parcel 22. At one time, we were looking at trying to develop that parcel as a whole. We're now reconsidering our use of that parcel and looking at breaking it up into smaller parcels and also creating some additional yards in that area. And as part of that, we will be taking another look at the drainage in that particular area.
Do you see that possibly being a public works project or?
Generally speaking, not. Do you want to address that?
Well, long-term, that particular, it's 15 acres, or almost 15 acres. We have been trying to develop it for the last 15 years, and for one reason or another, development has fallen through. City Council is very interested in that parcel since it's kind of a key piece, and very few parcels that large are left in this area. So what we're looking at is probably something on the lines of light industrial, and for long term, and using smaller parcels instead of the whole 15 acres, which we had tried to develop it with, one large tenant, and that just really did not work. At this point, with the economy the way it is, and the terminal project coming up, we're not in a huge rush to redevelop it, and right now is probably not a great time. The revenue that we get off of the property right now, and the only downside is the sorry condition that it's in, but the revenue is probably more than we would get by redeveloping it. So we're not hurting financially because of it.
And one other question was on a sub-note for the building 247 to be removed as unrentable. Is that structural not sound? Is that why it's going to be removed? Or
that structure is the big hangar that's on the north side. When we were going to develop the property, we had some fellow that lived, I think, in San Luis Obispo that wanted to restore it, dismantle it, take it up, and put it on his ranch as a hangar. So if it looks like we're not going to be developing the property for a number of years, internally, the staff is going to look at what it would cost to bring it up to rentable condition, because it is a nice space. I mean, it's about 20,000 square feet.
Yeah.
So,
thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I think that moves us on to the fiscal year review.
and Ms. Johns will be doing that report.
Okay.
Want me to-
Can you just click? Would that work? Each year, each department of the city is requested to take a look at their budget at mid-year and to analyze revenues and expenditures, and if necessary, to ask for adjustments that might be needed for the balance of the year. In the airports, in the report that you received, there's a spreadsheet for your use that provides actual data for 2008, the adopted budget for 2009, also a column that includes the carry forwards, any contract that was outstanding that was not completed that came forward. That's listed, and then 50% of the budget, and then our year-to-date numbers along with variances. We all know about the economic crisis that's going on. It began affecting the airport in September, as it did other industries. Commercial airlines continue to reduce their capacity, and we've had a reduction in passengers the last 3 or 4 months. And when we have fewer passengers, that affects our concession revenue at the airline terminal. Also, general aviation continues to experience some impacts from the recession. Earlier it was high fuel prices. Now it's just the economy. Our commercial industrial revenues, or total revenues, I should say, for the airport, though, at this point, we're doing fine. We have $6,857,000, and that's actually 4.67% above budget. As Rebecca reported, our properties here at the airport, commercial industrial properties, fill a niche for construction companies, utility companies, and small contractors. Those are the companies that will also be impacted by the economy, and we anticipate that our vacancy rate will continue to increase. Non-commercial aviation is anything inside the air operations area. The FBOs, Stratman, Ampersand, those tenants. And we're above the budget 8.4%, but that's primarily because we are including in that particular line item the rental we're receiving for TSA, renting space over by the terminal for their employee lounge and training facility. Otherwise, GA operations are down, and franchise corporate operations are also down. So fuel sales are down both in jet and avgas. Passenger terminal concessions, as I mentioned, those are really reflecting the economy at this point. Overall, we're down 2.15%. Our traffic in the first 6 months of the fiscal year, which would be July through December, we're down a total of 2.6%. Restaurant sales began going down in September, and they're double digits each month. So it's more than just tied to passenger traffic, and we'll be meeting with the restaurant provider trying to come up with some ideas as to what's really going on and why it's that far down. I have to tell you that we did receive a letter from their corporate office, and evidently they're experiencing this system-wide. That's SSP America. And we will, as I said, work with them to see what we can come up with. The gift shop, when we relocated to gates 8 and 9, their gross sales went down 33%. They still are. But good news, we're going to relocate them back into the central lobby, leave them alone for the next 2.5 years. And we're anticipating that their revenues will go up some. Parking is pretty much tracking with our overall passenger decline. Rental cars, you'll recall, we did a competitive bid with all of the on-airport rent-a-car companies, and they had to establish a minimum annual guarantee. That guarantee is still in place. They have asked other airports to waive it. They have not asked Santa Barbara to do that. So that's why it's up 11.4%. Commercial aviation, the airlines, two things. The budget for 2009 was the exact same budget as 2008, where the building rental is up because you'll recall we're charging employee parking at $3.45 per day per employee. That's about mid-year, it's $120,000, and that gets added into the building rent. Because it was part of the initial formula, they asked to take it out and pay it separately, and we said certainly we'll accommodate that request. So we are actually making more money than had they left it in the formula. Landing fees are based, as you know, on frequency of flight and type of aircraft, and right now we're above the budget, 12.5%. Interest, we're still up, but I'm told and had just received today for our budget purposes projected interest for next year, and it's down, and that's all tied to the city's portfolio. And where they had short-term investments that were, I think it was 4.6% interest they were receiving, they're anticipating cutting that in half. So our interest earnings next year will be less. TSA reimbursement, we have just today, Tracy received a signed executed contract with TSA to reimburse the airport for airport patrol officers going to the checkpoint. That's about $162,000 or thereabouts. So that, even though it's lagging at this point, we will receive all that money before the end of the year. Other income is up a little bit because at the end of the fiscal year, the city did some rebates and adjustments, and that money carried forward to 2009. This chart gives you a comparison of the budget, excuse me, which is in blue versus actual, which is mauve. I don't know what that color is, burgundy, and gives you a visual of how we're doing on our revenues. Expenditures, you always like to hear the other side of the coin, and we're down, or we're under budget on this one by 11.7%. So year-to-date, we have spent $5.7 million. This does include the $616,000 in carry-forwards that I mentioned earlier. Salary and benefits. Since 2002, when we added positions to patrol, we have never had full staff, and still don't. We also have a vacancy or two in maintenance. Supplies and services were below our budget. Utilities, part of the reason that we're below is because utilities have been reported for July through October. So we're not current. We don't have the utility bills in. Maintenance and airfield projects are planned for the spring. So they will be spending more of their budget on those projects. ARF, there's no variance. Engineering is below 16.9%, but they just flat have not spent any money, and we're encouraging them to continue to hold that position. Special projects, you'll recall AMCO, our parking operator, does the shuttle, so we track that one. Their expenses, too, are not a full 6 months. We're lagging on that one. Equipment, we did carry forward a request from Patrol and funding for a new patrol vehicle. That increased our budget. Some of the other purchases that had been planned are being evaluated on a case-by-case basis before we go forward with it. Allocated costs, of course, the city receives. They're really good about 1/12, so that's right on target. And then our next slide just gives you a comparison, again, of the budget in blue and the actual for the mid-year cycle. So in summary, once again, our revenues are above budget, our expenses are below. We are really going to be very, very conservative, though. As Rebecca reported, we start losing major tenants, and the revenue stops coming. So we are going to evaluate. We'll come back to Airport Commission either monthly or quarterly to give you a full report of where we are and what we're doing. And we'll also be doing our new budget, but at this time, we don't see a need to make any adjustments in our current year budget. Be happy to answer any questions.
And just a general curiosity, with the announcement of a little less service than we've had from some of the airlines, with the worst-case scenario on the properties not going forward, being rented for a while and that sort of thing, are we still, assuming those things didn't continue to produce revenue, we're still okay?
Yes.
That's really cool.
So far, so good. It impacts, we really, when we develop our budget, you'll recall our revenues more than meet our budget requirements. Mm-hmm. The difference between what we earn and what we spend goes into capital. Mm-hmm. That's what's going to be impacted. Mm-hmm. And we'll see it next year, I'm sure.
So kind of a continuation on his question with the Dallas flight leaving.
Yes.
How much of an impact does that have on our income budget-wise? And do we have any prospects of someone picking that up?
The impact to the budget will be, once again, the passenger loss, mm-hmm. as well as landing fees for that particular aircraft. Landing fee, if I remember correctly, it probably for a full year would be about $37,000. So we'll have it until April. So we'll have some of a little bit of a loss in landing fees. I'm really concerned about terminal concessions. They just seem to be, everybody's holding tight to money. So that's part of our problem. As far as prospects, We're always looking. We're always talking. I heard on the radio today that United laid off 1,000 people. Is that right? I think it's going to be a rough couple of years.
Thank you.
A couple questions. Last time the rental car agreements were negotiated, the result was fairly favorable to the airport. When do those contracts renew again?
2011, I believe.
11? Great. And another question maybe for our city liaison. Is there any risk that the city will kind of go back and reassess their allocated cost formulas to try to move more allocated costs out?
The preliminary report that I have from downtown actually for next year's budget shows a decrease. And that's based on salaries and benefits generally and what services we receive from downtown. And when the Airport Commission began approving leases that did not go to City Council, anything 5 years or less or anything the airport director deems appropriate, that cut down their time downtown. So we have seen we will see a decrease in allocated cost.
Great.
I'm not sure how to phrase the question. Is there a program or person who looks into trying to extend routes or seek new service from different airlines?
Yes, we have a actual marketing division and a marketing coordinator, and that's her job, or marketing the airlines on one hand and the airport, and the other is air service development. And when we get more into your briefing, I'll explain it and let you meet Terry. But we have quite an extensive program, so yeah, we are
Thank you.
beating the bushes.
Yes, Madam Chair. Maybe also would be a good idea for the listening public or watching public to just take a minute and describe an enterprise fund and the distinction, especially when we're looking at our budget so thoroughly and we're facing some significant shortfalls both in revenue on the revenue side for sure, and then the need perhaps to make some cuts in the not just this year but in perhaps looking at the coming year. But how the structure of the different departments, in particular the enterprise funds, are in their own realm, if you will, and kind of kept away from our general fund. And maybe staff would take just a minute and describe that. I think that would be of interest.
Okay.
Starting at the beginning with the grant deed that we received from the military back in 1949. The airport is established that all revenues generated on the airport must go for the operation, maintenance, and capital improvement of the airport. The airport, all funds stay here. We do, and we're considered, as Councilmember House said, an enterprise fund, and that literally means our funds are kept separate from downtown. We pay for services that are rendered, whether it's ARF, which is about $1.6 million for firefighting services at the airport. We pay for 2 engineers to Public Works, and we pay allocated costs downtown. The rest of the money stays here. The city does not give us a subsidy, nor do we get tax dollars or sales tax or property tax. If we don't earn it, we literally cannot spend it. Does that help? He's got another question. He needs a seat.
I think that really goes to, but the next piece of that, the other side of the same hand, is how budget shortfalls or changes in our general fund would not be affecting the airport. It goes the other way as well, and I think that's an important piece. The airport kind of stands on its own, and on the other hand, is not expected to contribute to other departments except for services, and that's just exactly what you described. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a pretty important distinction to make, because we have had constituents who have asked us, well, if you're doing well at the airport, or if you're doing well with your water fund, or if you're doing well at the municipal golf course, each of these are enterprise funds. If you're doing well at the harbor, why can't you just take funds from there and put it towards your general fund issue. And in fact, then there's a firewall up basically between the enterprise funds in general. I mean, there's probably some exception which I don't know about yet, but at least at this point, we're really holding a firewall up there with the enterprise funds, and I think you described it very well.
I think with airports also we have the extra protection of federal law, whereas some of the other enterprise funds of the city don't quite have that as much of protection as we do, which we're grateful for.
Yes, we are.
You can thank Mayor Reardon of Los Angeles for that protection.
Well, I think as a concept, part of why enterprises work is because they're supposed to be entrepreneurial. And
Right.
if a city starts just taking any, any net revenue or profit back away, there's less incentive for a unit to be entrepreneurial. So
Right.
there's
Exactly.
another good reason for that.
Which brings us to the director's report.
Okay, the favorite part of the agenda. Our passenger count for the month of December was down 9.4% compared to December of 2008 or 7, and year to date for the year of 2008 we were down 0.4%, so we're basically even, which I felt very grateful for. And as Hazel was mentioning in her mid-year presentation, for budget purposes, we look at passenger count on a fiscal year basis, and typically in the industry, we look at it on a calendar year, so that the numbers can be different in terms of what the totals are and comparing it. As much as I hate to do it, I think maybe we should switch over to doing it on the fiscal year. For some reason, it bugs me to do it that way, but I think it would jive with what you're hearing on the budget and make it easier for you to track. And, as Hazel mentioned, that as most airports have been seeing decreases more than just the last few months. Some airports on the East Coast started more than a year ago of seeing decreases, not only in service but in passenger usage. I feel very fortunate that we've kind of been able to tread water as much as we have. And again, we'll be formulating our budget very conservatively, kind of planning on a decrease in passengers so that we don't get caught fiscally by surprise. Aircraft operations continue to go down. General aviation, as I've pointed out before, the local operations are generally flight school activity, practice, and those have gone down really significantly, and so we can assume that they're getting hit by the economy as well. And I know, Mayor Aceves, I've had some of your the constituents around the airport say, the operations are, there are more aircraft operations, but they're down really significantly. That doesn't mean it doesn't bother them anymore, but I did want to mention that. Air freight is also significantly down if you look at the chart. So we are seeing effects of the economy, and as a former air service consultant that we had when I first came to the airport said that generally airports in the airline industry will start seeing the effects of a poor economy, well, actually of the economy, whether it's poor or good, before other sectors of the economy do. And it seems to sort of hold true from what I've seen since I've been here. In terms of air service, you know that we'll lose the Dallas service effective April 6th.
Karen, would you confirm that's just one flight
Yes,
out and in?
we have just one flight a day.
So
And
that's
we'll continue.
50 seats each way?
I think it's 70
70.
seat now. They started out with 50. Yeah, so that was pretty devastating to hear. And we will continue to work with American, American Eagle, as well as other potential carriers to fill that void. Although now is really not a good time I don't think we'll get much response until the economy starts picking up. Under property management, our self-serve fuel project, that we're not doing the project, but we have selected a private operator, and Hazel's been working with them on the agreement, and we're kind of starting the process, and they still seem to be in the game.
Excited.
Regardless of the economy so far. So that's really good news. Airport, or the terminal project, we have been when we received the bids, we've been successful in having the contractors hold the bids till March 16th, and that gives us time to work out our financing arrangements. We do have a bid protest by the second lowest bidder, and the engineers are working on responding to that. So I don't know which one we'll end up with, the lowest bid or the second lowest bid at this point. But anyway, we're moving forward, and of course this project is why we're keeping our operational budget in line with our long-term financial projections, so that we can continue to afford the new terminal. The consolidated rental car quick turnaround facility is under construction, and I encourage you to drive by on Love Place. It's right across from the Community Environmental Council Recycling Center. Oh, no, it's not that anymore. It's Marburg. Excuse me.
It's okay.
Past times. The Marburg Recycling Center, and the walls are going up, and it's making a lot of progress, so that's pretty exciting. And
can you describe for the viewing public exactly what that is?
This is a facility where the rental cars will do light maintenance, fueling, and car storage. There will be no renting of cars at this facility. They do it right now, as you know, just a little bit south of the terminal. The maintenance activities and car washing is not the best situation. It's in a very tight, small area. The building that they're in currently will come down when the terminal is built, and their customer counters will go back into the terminal like they used to be, and the maintenance activity and car storage will be taken care of on Love Place off Hollister Avenue. So this is going to be, I think, a great facility for the rental cars. They're very excited. It'll be a LEED Silver facility. We'll have solar panels in the parking lot as well as on the building that will generate, I think we're estimating, up to 75% of the facility's electrical use. So it's going to be really a very nice and needed.
Karen, a question. Understanding that the quick turn facility will be done relatively soon, which will mean that some of those activities will be removed from their rental location now. Will that provide additional space that can be lightly remodeled and make way for more rental car office space that's rentable, or even increase the space of the current stalls for the various renters so that they will have more space to purchase? Or what happens to that space when the washing area and...
Well, really, the space that they're in,
It's a garage area, isn't it?
it's a garage, and it would take quite a bit of remodel to make it office-type use.
I'm just wondering if it has any use, given its kind of prime location, that somebody might be interested in renting, or would any of the current people, since a lot of our terminal is, quote, garage as well, be interested in expanding their space to include what could be with a wall moving reconfiguration to give them more space that's rentable?
I'm not sure.
My recollection is that part of that space, it was intended to be staging for the terminal construction.
That's true. When we take away the long-term parking lot and so forth, it'll come right up almost close to the building. I'm not really sure how usable, other than maybe storage, and the rental car companies might find that useful. The airlines might find it useful for storage. And then if we, I don't know. We really haven't thought that through yet.
Okay.
The estimated completion date of the quick turnaround facility is,
July.
that's exciting.
Yeah.
It is exciting. And caveat to what Karen reported, fees collected from the rental car contracts. There's an assessment of $10 per contract, customer facility charge, and the revenue that's generated from that will go to pay the cost of the improvement. So,
And that's it for my director's report, unless you have other questions.
Does Southwest fly to Dallas?
Yes, they have a huge hub
they
there.
go
I
to
thought
Love
they did.
Field.
And
Right.
have they ever shown any interest in this airport?
No, we don't have enough market area or potential passengers for what they require to fly out.
They want something like 8 flights a day
Oh.
in order to even
Yeah.
talk to a city. So
Yeah.
we're quite.
How silly.
It's unfortunate. And, maybe in the distant future, they'll change their model and go into smaller cities. But at this point, we just don't have the enough people in the market to give the volume that they need.
Okay.
And the
Thank you.
Dallas flight was pretty successful,
Oh, yes.
Yes.
from my recollection.
What was their load factor? Were they pretty?
I think the most recent one was like 93%. They indicated to Karen that it wasn't that people were on it. It's just that they needed the equipment.
And when you consider that was the longest flight for that aircraft of any other route in their system for us. And to use that once a day or twice a day, but front and back or going and coming. And they could use it in a market where it's a shorter route and they could fly it a few times a day, same ticket price. So you can see that they really could make more money in a higher frequency market. But they did say that there were another small community where they were pulling that service as well, offered incentives like, tell us what it would cost for us to pay for that service. And they just, it wasn't the money, or the money to save that one flight. It was being able to make more money and use their aircraft more efficiently somewhere else. And you can't really fault them.
Well, it sounds like what you're
That-
describing is going to increase their revenue by at least 4 times.
Right.
There's no way to compensate for that.
No, no. And you can't, they're a business and they're in it to make a profit. They're not a nonprofit. They may be nonprofit,
Well,
but they don't
could
intend
soon,
to be.
Yes.
I have a question on the noise abatement program. It's been an issue for a while, but I'm just curious. The airport's made attempts to get noise monitoring stations out in the Goleta area, and they've all been unsuccessful. They haven't been favorably received, in your words. And I'm just really curious. I would have thought people would want somebody monitoring the noise in their neighborhood. So I was curious if you could characterize why it is that these proposals to put noise monitoring out there have been unsuccessful. Are they the sites seen as unsightly, or just a distrust of having something like that out there?
Different agencies had different reasons, but how they looked, even though it's basically a pole, with a
Microphone.
receiver kind of thing on it. Yeah, microphone. They just had different, reasons for not wanting to do it. We do have one location that looks like it's going to work, and Tracy said, fortunately, it's if we had to only have one, it was the best place to have it. So, yeah, it is kind of disappointing, but
We need to disguise it as a palm tree, or
yeah.
anybody tried pairing with the cell phone towers? I don't know if they are in the appropriate places,
Yeah, I don't know.
or offer the cell phone operators space and better service for the people. And all of a sudden, they'll like it.
I like the palm tree idea.
And we could put a sign on them and recognition and gain revenue.
I like a palm tree. Let's make it look like a palm tree.
Billboards.
The neon palm tree.
Well, we've had problems with the birds will sit on top of the microphone. I don't know how they exactly manage to do it. And that will
Spikes.
cause the noise to go up because they're screeching on top of it. If we put a palm tree, we'll have lots of birds on there making noise.
Can I ask what the sorry.
No,
What the history is on the noise abatement? Is there something driving the program to add more monitors?
Yes, in terms of delineating where the 65 CNEL noise contour is, and we have monitors east and west of the airport right now, and it's been our intention to add more in other areas around the airport and the North Goleta area, but they just didn't work out in terms of the agencies we were working with.
well, if you have no further reports and we have no further items, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Great. Thank you all.
We are adjourned.
Balsenas with City TV, and welcome to Inside Santa Barbara, the city's only news magazine show. We bring you up to date on the city's most significant issues, projects, and events. Well, it's only been 2 months since the Tea Fire, and the rebuilding process has just begun. From the ashes of this devastating fire, those who must rebuild are also learning there is opportunity. In our top story, we go inside the rebuilding process to find out